We started this session this year with the discussion from Professor Bale for the first 5 lectures. And for the last couple of times, I've taken up the chapter 13, talking about the values. You described in that chapter, the first verse as Jnana. But of course, this knowledge is not Atma-Jnana, but the value, information, knowledge, wisdom that is required as a foundation of knowledge so that one is ready to receive the Atma-Jnana. The first couple of verses, first time when we discussed about with amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, kshantir, arjavam. So basically, after introducing the topic, we discussed about amanitvam and adambitvam. In the last session, we had a chance to discuss about ahimsa and kshanti. So we come to the 5th quality that Shri Krishna is teaching him, and that word is Arjavam. Arjavam comes from the word ruja. That means ruja means straight. Rujo bhava is Arjavam. So basically, he is a straightforward individual. He has a perfect alignment between his thoughts, words, and action. And purpose is, ultimate intent is carrying out right conduct. In other words, he just not simply talks the talk, but exactly the same way he walks the walk as well. When we discussed the Santagraha in one of the sessions, talking about Maharashtrian Sant, the typical word is Bole taisa chale, tyashi vandavi paule. Someone who speaks and walks or carries out exactly the same words, one should really ask for guidance from him, touch his feet. In order to be ready to receive the Atma-Jnana, one must be consistent with your thoughts, words, and your actions. An opposite of Arjavam is crookedness, vakram. Now, again, Arjavam also is universal value, because I expect others to be truthful to me, and hence I reciprocate by being truthful and straightforward about it. So in this quality, there is no duplicity of words, thoughts, and actions. Now look, I'm going to say the same sentence in Sanskrit, but the intonation will be different, giving you a totally different meaning. Manasyekam, vachanai ekam, karmarnya ekam, mahatmana. Manasyekam, vachanai ekam, and karmanya ekam, duratmana. So basically, there's a play on the word ekam, what exactly you're referring to, where you have the consistent, the same thing, and describing different in the same word ekam, the activities leads to a person who is duratmana, not mahatmana. Now this is for the people, when I was growing up as a little kid, one of the teachers made this motion. So the question was asked, the question was, how many Pandavas are there? During Surya Mahabharata. So he answers is that is the same as the number of legs that they are for the chopai. And he shows at the same time 3 fingers, says by mouth 2, and he's closing one eye and showing one eye. So one eye, word coming out of the mouth is 2, 3 fingers shown by fingers, talking about 4 legs of the chopai. And the question asked was, how many Pandavas? This is exactly opposite of Arjavam, uprightness, straightforwardness, when the thoughts, words, and actions are perfectly aligned. So that person who does not practice that he is not a trustworthy individual. Now, this is the one which went relatively quickly as compared to the qualities are concerned. But the very first verse here itself has about 9 qualities that Sri Krishna described in the 7th verse of the 13th chapter. The next quality he described is Acharya Upasanam. Achinoti Shastrartham. Acharya Sthapayati api. So one who learns, understands Shastrartham, he puts in his daily activity. Acharya Sthapayati api. Also established that way. But not that person then, having selected the good qualities, using in day to day, and becomes a routine for him. Swayam acharate tasmat asmat acharya uchyate. That means the person who doesn't understand what the good qualities are, but he puts them into day-to-day routine. Swayam acharate, that is acharya. As a matter of fact, in Taittiriya Upanishad we learn when the 4 years or 12 years were over, in the graduation time, the teacher reminds him, Matrudeva bho, Pitrudeva bho, then Acharya Deva bho, then concluding with Atiti Deva bho. So it's important to remember the Acharya is kept at the same level as Bhagavad Deva. Now, Shri Krishna talks in his 4th chapter, the 34th verse, Tatvidhi Panipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya Upadekshanti te Jnanam Jnaninas Tattva Darshanam. He's reminding, if you want to seek the enlightenment, that means getting over if you want to seek the enlightenment from those who have already realized the truth, who Tattva Darshana, who already realized the truth, Tattva Darshana. They have not seen it, they experienced it, they have Anubhav. So if you want to seek the enlightenment from those who are already realized, enlightened, prostrate before them, bow down to them, that means surrendering your ego, make respectful queries to clear the misunderstandings and seek further elucidation and then serve them. So he's not beating about the bush. If you want to learn, first thing you do is cut down the ego. Other description of Acharya is Swayam Acharati and Shishyan Acharayati. That means he not only practices, but makes certain that his disciples practice exactly the same way. In some places mentioned Anyan Acharayati, but basically, since he's teaching disciples, Shishyan, that's what I described. Now, in order to have the capacity to learn, one must have an implicit shraddha, trust in that teacher, because it is very important that if you have the ego, you're not going to learn anything from the teacher, because if you walk in the classroom of Professor Prasanna Kumar, saying that he's an Indian guy with a dark skin, I'm not going to learn anything from him. Trust me, at the end of the session, you're not concentrating, you're not learning much. But if you go with an open eyes, ears, and appreciation, respectfulness in his classroom, by the time the sessions are over, you'll be appreciating how much you have learned from this renowned teacher. So you have to have that, to surrender the ego and be respectful of the teacher. That's absolutely essential. The reason for that is the teacher has to be not who is learning, but he has to have Anubhav in his lifespan. And as a matter of fact, it'll come to discussion when I go in greater depth of the qualities of the teacher. But even for the teachers, they need to have a regular session where he or she is able to control their ego, because that's why they need to be with the professors of different specialties who will keep down their ego under control. So anytime when you are teaching a student also, if your own ego gets in the way, then the student has a problem and the teacher has a problem. As I mentioned to you, regardless how good you are at any subject or sport activity, everyone needs a teacher. In Sanskrit, the teacher is called Guru. Gu means ignorance or darkness, and Ru is the one who removes it. So everybody needs a Guru. And he's a Guru, as I mentioned to you earlier, has to be grounded in Brahman. That means Shrotriya, was read the Shrutis, understood them, but also is Brahmanishta, grounded into Brahman. And that grounding only comes through the personal experience, Anubhava. Now, there is a deep personal relationship between the Guru and Shishya. That is absolutely essential. And that's the reason, personally, you remember in the olden times, the student will go for 12 years and stay in the ashram of the Guru, like a member of the family, where he or she was able to learn not only the Vedas and Upanishads and other spiritual studies, but also was able to learn how he and Guru Patni were able to interact with other individuals for day-to-day activities. That's through the education. Unfortunately, that kind of close relationship has recent times has created a very negative reaction, because as we commented before, these days there are several individuals who have flooded the market as enlightened and perfected gurus, because they have created a business for themselves, very lucrative business for themselves, by the way, because it requires no investment and promises lots of returns, financial returns for these charlatans. Buy only the saffron currant robes, grow the beards, grow the long hair, have that external appearance for a guru, but without having understood or experienced what Brahman is. So really speaking, you have to gain the knowledge of Brahman. Enlightenment only comes to the traditional teachers who are enlightened. Shri Krishna talks in the 4th chapter, I taught Titu Vivasman. But again, if you want to take that, Sadashiva Samarambat, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmat Acharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Parampara. The teacher and student are sitting next to each other, and the student says, I salute the lineage of teachers, beginning with Lord Shiva himself, Sadashiva Samarambat, linked in the middle by sage Shankaracharya, and extending down to this, my own teacher, who also is enlightened. Because really, what one needs is only one guru ultimately, but that guru has to go through the traditional teachers, the first teacher being Sadashiva himself. Now that's what the qualities of guru. He must be secure and confident. He cannot pretend to know, but must be knowing that he indeed knows. Such Sadguru should have no other commitments except to teach the disciple who's truly interested in learning. So what are the essential qualities of a good teacher? He has to have mastery of the spiritual knowledge. And as I mentioned earlier, he has to have a personal experience of reality, Anubhava. He also knows what is right and what is wrong. He knows right from the wrong. Not in simply words, thoughts, but also in actions. He also understands what is transient and what is permanent. So he has Viveka Buddhi. He understands what is transient, what is permanent. He has Indriya Damana. He has a control over the senses and sense organs. He is at peace. Guru has peace and tranquility in the mind. If mind is perturbed, you cannot teach. On a given day when Prasanna went to college and teach, if mind was perturbed, obviously his teaching on that day was not as effective. And that teacher has to be not good only in the classroom, but other activities has to be satkriya. He has to be doing activities which are the good for the others, unselfish, social activities. Again, that's exactly what the youngster learns when he lives in Gurukula. He is always driving towards good and sattvic qualities, with occasionally bursts of energy through rajasic, but driving away from the tamasic activities. So basically, sat guna dhyasa, trying to become satguni, sattvic guni primarily. That teacher has to be alert all the time. He is able to see what is a fact and what is a fiction. He has to see how the things they are and act objectively. If the time permits, I'll tell you a story about it too. The teacher has to be overflowing with compassion for his students, the fellow countrymen, welfare of everyone, and all the times, karunya bhava. And as I reminded each earlier, like we'd go to the medical conference, continuing medical education, he has to do continuous spiritual education himself by reading, doing meditations, discussing with other scholars, and staying in the company of good people. He should be reasonably strong speaker. He should be able to keep the listeners glued to the discussion that is going on, called vaktrutva. He has to have a clarity of vision. He has to have absolute mastery of the subject and clarifies the difficult, challenging subject to make it as simple and easy to understand, and make certain that he is open to additional questions for clarifications. So Shuddha Drishti you need. He must have steadiness and fortitude. He should be determined. He should be well grounded in the subject matter. And when he's teaching, called Drudha Nishchaya, that yes, I'm going to teach my disciple because he's really interested and is qualified for it. He should be mindful of all types of situations and every kind of temptations, savadhanata, because we live in this world where temptations are many, and because you're in the position of the teacher, many things come up relatively easily. But it's important that he has to maintain his appropriate behavior, conduct, savadhanata, because sometimes the students themselves are trying to attract the teacher to go away from the standard path. So he should be aware as to what's happening around. And he has just about smarts about everything around everything, acts objectively, effectively, and promptly. That word described is chaturya. Now, this guru, called Sadguru, I call him, exploits no one. He's already enlightened. He has nothing more to gain, except perhaps his desire is to get some good students, because when he leaves his mortal world, which is transient, his body, he wants to make sure that that knowledge is not wasted, but is passed on traditionally to the next generation of upcoming students who want to learn the subject. So he wants a dedicated disciple, just like Ramakrishna was waiting patiently to have a person like Narendra come up to become the Swami Vivekananda. Other comment I want to make is, you may learn at the feet of the teacher, but that is not all there is as far as education is concerned. If you remember, Acharya Upasana, you learn from the teacher, Padam, that means 1/4. Padam Shishya Swamedata. That means that disciple himself, through his studies, using reference books, reflecting on the same scripture the teacher taught you earlier, he is able to understand even more deeper meaning of that subject matter. So 1/4 comes from the teacher, 1/4 comes from his own hard work and reading and reflecting and meditating. Padam sab brahmacharibhya. That means you learn from your fellow students. So even when you go out on Friday night with your friends, if you happen to attend a good college where other students are just as bright, your learning is going to be even a little better. So you have to learn from each other as disciples. And that has to continue through the continuing education in the field that you have chosen. So that continuously with the professionals in that field, you can learn. So 1/4 for teacher, 1/4 for your own studies, 1/4 by the interacting the people of the same profession or fellow students. And last but not the least, the last quarter comes as you grow through the life. Padam kala kramenacha. The 1/4 of knowledge comes to the individual as that life goes by through life experiences. So just because you finished the college, that doesn't mean you understood. Just because you finished MD, you just started at square one, just started 1/4. And that education has to continue till time you reach the stage of Prasanna Kumar, where the second chapter, and Prasanna quotes it quite often, in the 55th verse, Atmanye Atmana Tushta. That means having been enlightened in the presence of the Atman, he's at peace. He doesn't require anything more. He's just content that he has been enlightened and is very much at peace, requires nothing material as far as concerned. When you're talking as a teacher and a student, that discussion has to be one kind of a dialogue. That's called samvad. When we talk regular basis on a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or even a glass of wine, that is when we're talking amongst equals, that is vad. You're learning from each other, understands each other. You learn something and you teach something. Samvad is a respectful dialogue. That samvad was between Arjun, Sri Krishna, samvad. That means here one individual accepts himself to be the disciple and accept other individual as the teacher. So that relationship is much more different than just being a regular discussion that we have casually. Relationship between guru and teacher and disciple and the students. And what happens then? When you hear the comment from the teacher is given an extra leeway. If the words appear confusing, don't call the teacher stupid. He doesn't say correctly. Accept the fact that maybe you have not understood properly. So if you remember, I think in the 3rd chapter, 2nd verse, Arjuna says, Vyamish shrevena vakyena buddhim moha yasiva me tadeva nishchitya yena shreyo hamapnuya. He didn't say, you didn't make any sense to me, Krishna. Arjuna says, I did not understand your speech. My mind is confused. It's my problem. Please clarify for me the path I should take that will lead me to the highest good. Shreya. Ultimately, I reach the path of Shreyas. So it is my problem. I did not understand it. It's my confusion. Kindly explain. That's a respectful way of dialogue with the teacher and the student. And I already referred to the 34th verse of the 4th chapter, Tadviddi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnanis tattvadarshana. That wisdom can be acquired through humble resignation. You have to be respectful. Respectful queries done repeatedly by rendering service to the wise who have realized the truth. In turn, those individuals will indeed pass on that knowledge to you. Let me confuse you guys. When the teacher says, Shruti says that Brahman cannot be objectified by mind, however, Brahman can be recognized or realized by mind. I said, it cannot be objectified by mind, but has to be realized by the mind. It may appear confusing, but when you have experienced it, because the true knowledge is the only subject that allows us to gain the knowledge. So you cannot objectify the subject that is the one allows you to objectify. So I can understand why the first statement should be clear, that you cannot objectify by the mind, because only thing that mind is able to objectify is that particular subject. However, the mind can experience it. So that experience is called anubhav. So through experience of the mind of Brahman, one is able to realize it. So I hope I have not confused you, but you have to be very careful when you're listening to the word. Objectification of the subject is not possible. Only subject is the one which allows you to objectify. So again, if you don't understand it, you have to ask repeatedly the same question in a respectful way. And when you go through the process of learning, gaining knowledge, it takes a long time, but still you will gain knowledge. Not a question. You will not get knowledge, you'll get it. Because if you read the 6th chapter, won't bore you again, you can come back again and complete the education. I want to talk about different kinds of dialogues. We have my notes here. Why do you need a guru? I think we touched on that subject last time. If you want to light your own candle inside your body, you already need a candle which is already burning. So you need a teacher who is absolutely experienced himself, having anubhav of the Brahman. I know John does not like the word Brahman. What do you want to call it? It's perfectly fine with me. It's very difficult to find out one's own faults. But when you have a relationship between a teacher and a student, teacher has no hesitation in pointing out the shortcomings of the student. He'll be able to find the defects and say that since that relationship is not equal as a regular dialogue we have in a cup of tea, but the relationship between teacher and student, the teacher has no hesitation in pointing out the shortcomings of the student. As an individual, because of the ego, one sometimes is not able to recognize the shortcomings. Other one, you can look at it, however brilliant your eyesight may be. I know Bala is not there. He had his cataract surgery last week, so he's able to see better. But even he cannot see his own back. So there are certain parts of your personality which are the blind spots for every individual. So that's the teacher is able to see them and point it out to you. And so the student or disciple has to stay in the company of the guru in the spirit of a disciple for eradication of those shortcomings, misunderstandings, and errors. Shortcomings, misunderstandings, and many times outright errors. And of course, by keeping diet, meditating, worshipping, reading scriptures, everyone can make certain progress, but you still need a living teacher. That's why when we started with Lord Sadashiva, Shankaracharya is from the 8th century, he's no longer alive physically. We still need a living teacher to teach you. You also need a living teacher because Guru is able to provide encouragement to continue to strive through difficult times. I mean, anytime when you go to the exercise room, exercise fitness clubs, if you are alone going, someday you may not feel like going. But if you have a buddy system or somebody else with you, he or she is going to make certain that on the day that you don't feel like doing it, you're still doing it. And you can do the same thing the other way around. So it's important that the guru is able to encourage you even the days when you find it difficult. And that's why you need an experienced guide. You reminding him, yes, it was difficult for me too, but my teacher reminded me I need to do so. That's why you need a living teacher who's experienced. And then when you are pushed yourself because of the guru, you'll be amazed how much you're able to accomplish, because you don't go back because you're not missed a couple of days of exercise, but you maintain that momentum to go forward. Guru is able to help us develop a spiritual self-concept, because whatever self-concept we bring along with it self-doubt in some cases, whether I understand or not. And many times they come up with self-pride. I know it all. What's this teacher going to teach me? And Guru is able to guide us to move beyond it and truly help you identify and experience the self when you're still alive. As he's going by, he is just reminding of the old verses, re-reminding them because you have heard them before from the same teacher. And then while answering question, he's able to share with the students his personal living insights to make it easy to understand. Because you can read a lot through the books, that's knowledge. But what you learn from the teacher is the thing that he has learned during his lifetime, the wisdoms. Because remember, the education starts with the teacher, your own studies, fellow beings, and last but not least, the life experiences. So the teacher is able to do that. Now, teacher also is able to watch your performance, and a good teacher can see your strengths and use that strength to accomplish the ultimate goal. Or he's able to see the weaknesses in your thinking and rectify or fortify those weaknesses to make them better. So that's why you need a living individual who's watching you to have a living guru. And you don't need to get a diksha, but if you want to assign yourself exclusively for that, that also is possible. Now, as I mentioned to you, on Purnima Day, that's the birthday of Guru Nanak. He lived between 1469 to 1539, 70 years. His quotation about teachers like that is interesting. He said, he refers to mystics as gurus. He says God and his mystics are one. Really speaking, what he's referring to, mystics are the enlightened people. Take them not as different due to their human form, he says. Take them not as different due to the human form. And he gives a beautiful example from Vedanta. As the waves rises above the water and once again merges into it again, so do the saints merge into the Lord. So beautiful description. We use that waves simile many times. But here's Guru Nanak himself giving an example, teaching why you should teach the enlightened teacher, he's calling mystics, same as God. Santa Kabir says, it is the mercy of my true Guru that has made me know its unknown. Learn from him how to walk without the feet, to see without the eyes, to hear without the ears, to drink without the mouth, and to fly without the wings. Without eating, I have tasted the sweetness of the nectar, and without water, I have quenched the thirst. Any words from Guru is great beyond the words, and is the good fortune of the disciple. And if you remember, we sing Gita Dhyanam, Mukam karoti vachalam, Pangung langhayate girim, Yat Krupa tamaham vande, Paramananda madhavam. So that's exactly the teacher is able to do. It's amazing how, if I remember, I may have told you that story before, how the person has to have on the spot, think quickly, and act appropriately to help others. This story told by Rumi, Maulana Rumi, a story of a child. The child gets out of the window on the first floor of the roof, gets on the roof. Can you imagine the window open, small roof is there, and it's up because at the end of the roof, he goes down. There's a water, the jets out of it so that does not ruin anything else, goes in one single stream, does not destroy anything underneath. So he goes up and down, has fun, doesn't realize the danger that is lurking underneath. And mother is panicking, asking the child to come back. And child keeps on going up and down, laughing, not realizing he's having just funny things, not realizing what is happening. A wise man with experience, he observes the situation and makes a quick decision. He tells mother, go back inside the house, hand over a fun toy to another child of yours, and make that child play that with that fun toy, and let the child who's going up and down see how much fun he's having with the toy. And as soon as the other child started doing it, the child on the roof immediately came back through the window and wanted to play with the same toy as well. That is dakshata, being on the spot. That is the experience, life experience. That's the smart teacher who's able to advise the mother how to save the child. And like that wise man, many average human beings, what we call consider average, have come as Sadgurus in our lives. They look ordinary, but their state of consciousness beyond the worldly level, but we know it not. They're able to communicate with us the greatest truth and methods to attain the highest knowledge. So they are wise, they're called Chatur and Daksha. They are on the spot, they're smart, and have presence of mind at that particular time. Every teacher is also a student. And I mention to you is that I learn from every student that I have taught, because every time we have taken the students, the 39 years we've done it this year, the students in the camp, the questions that they ask, the discussion that go on, teach the student as much as the teacher learns from that discussion. I'll tell you the story, the camps I remember, I was to go with the 10 points, want to learn from the SOI. I would give them a SOI in the camp book, and many times they would not read it. Most of the time they would not read it. And I would make sure that they'd read that one page on that evening, and like them to have discussion as to what they learned from that. As a preparation, I would go with 10 things that I want to teach. And every time they, during the discussion, made a good point, I would write on the blackboard behind. And when the 10 points were done, I would stop. And what I learned over a period of time, that out of those 10 points that they told me to write, 5 of them I had not even considered myself. Of course, I then added on 5 more that I had noted down and shared them with them. But what I'm trying to say is, just like the teacher teaches you, if you have good students, you have made sure they're learning along the way. The teacher also learns from the students. So education goes both ways. So we finished so far education, knowledge. We talked about the value of Guru, and we talked about Arjavam.
Yeah, Shashi.
Yeah, Prasanna.
Yeah, you on the comment on the Arjavam,
Yeah.
You mentioned about the thought, the word, and the action should be aligned properly.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of a story of Sri Shankaracharya. He went to Kashi Vishwanath temple along with his disciples.
Yeah.
And then he was praying to God to forgive him for the three sins he had committed. And the students were very surprised. How can my teacher ask for forgiveness for the 3 sins? What are the 3 sins that you have committed? Shankaracharya replied, I have written about God being omnipresent. I have spoken of God being omnipresent, and yet here I come to the temple to visit, to have the darshan of the Lord. So my first sin is I've committed the sin of saying one thing and doing the other. The second thing, he says, Upanishads, he quotes the Upanishads saying that God cannot be described by words. Mind cannot comprehend him by words. Yet, I know the words cannot describe him. Yet I made an attempt to describe him in the Kashi Vishwanatha Ashtakam.
Mhm.
So the sin I have committed is not practicing what I preached.
preach.
This is my second sin.
Yeah.
And lastly, he says, in Nirvana Shatikam, he had written, Shankara himself, I do not need sacred chants, nor I need to go on pilgrimages. I do not need scriptures, rituals, or sacrifices. I am neither the enjoyer, nor the enjoyed, nor the enjoyment. I am the form of Satchidananda. I am auspicious, I am auspicious. Yet here I am standing in front of the Lord, praying for the atonement of my sins. This is my third sin, he says. So the reason I'm saying is because that when you have the knowledge, you have the capacity to admit the mistakes that you have made.
Exactly.
When you don't have that knowledge, you try to defend your actions, your words, and your deeds by inventing things, which is very offensive to me. And you can see the Duratmanam, Manasyekam, Vachasyekam, Karmanyekam, Duratmanam, particularly at this time of the year, during the elections, when the politicians think of one thing, say something, and do something quite opposite. So you can actually see that. And so it is very important for us to recognize, yes, sometimes we overstep the Mahatmanam dictum, but we are grown up enough to recognize and acknowledge our mistakes, then we are okay. Then we come straight up to that. And then you talked about Guru, and I remember you mentioning many times that for success in life, you need to put your own self-effort, the grace of your effort, sadhana krupa. You need the grace of your teacher, Guru Krupa, and then you need the grace of Lord, which is Daiva Krupa.
Deva Krupa.
Yeah. All the three should be
aligned.
Along. And Guru does not necessarily mean the one with a beard and a yellow robe. Guru can be your friend, Guru can be your mother, your father, almost anybody who enriches your understanding of how you should behave yourself in life, how you should overcome the obstacles that come in your way during your lifetime. So gurus are a number of gurus, but the important thing to recognize, of course, as you said, we should have the ability to judge the validity of the guru. So otherwise you can be led astray. False promises are easy to make, but very difficult to keep.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, when the teacher admits the mistakes, it does not go down as a negative thing for him. It goes as a positive quality. Because the admission itself of oversight is a comfort for the students too. Because not everybody is batting 1,000 in the major leagues, even though you may batting championship. Every once in a while, as a human being, in the mortal form, you're going to have a certain amount of impurities and make mistake. But again, admitting it, and again, that also using it as a teaching part to the student is very effective way of teaching it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. As far as teacher is concerned, I've been a teacher myself all my life, at least 40 years at the university. I'm not going to brag about it, but I want to tell you a story. The dean had a meeting with a very famous scientist at Mayo Clinic in Rochester. And the scientist asked the dean, is Professor Kumar still around? And the dean said, yes, he's retired, but he's still around. He keeps in touch with his colleagues and everything else. So he is still very active in that respect. And then the scientist at Mayo recalled an incident that he was coming to attend my lecture, and near the university he got into a small accident. He left the car there and literally ran to come to my class, even though he had some bruises on his face and hands. And at the end of the class, I asked him, why did you come to the class? What happened to you? Apparently, this is what he told me, there was no way I'm ever going to miss your class. And that's the highest compliment a teacher can get from a student.
Absolutely.
So Barry was a good student, and he rose through the ranks. He is now retired, but it sort of makes the teacher worth, it was worthwhile.
Makes your day. Absolutely. But that guy is going to go a long way. He already has gone, I'm sure. But
oh yes,
without that attitude and respectfulness and willing to learn from a good teacher, that's you're not going to get any place. That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Wonderful. I'm going to stop at this stage. Any questions or comments? Anybody else, please? John?
Well, how did you know? I was inspired. I was reminded of one of my most favorite poems by this discussion about teachers and where you learn. And it's by Akka Mahadevi. It's one of many of hers that I truly love. But this is how it goes. It says, "You are the forest. You are all the great trees in the forest. You are bird and beast playing in and out of all the trees. O Lord, white as jasmine, filling and filled by all, why don't you show me your face?" That wisdom is potentially available to us anywhere. And you made that point so eloquently. I just really appreciate that.
No, this experience actually, you can feel it, experience it, and it's so enchanting too. So I think as we were talking the other day, those living animals, plants, bushes, they bring out the divine beauty all the time. I think just that requires a person to appreciate it. So I'm glad that you enjoy you every time you go outside. That's great. And take good pictures too. So
this is Naina, and so many things that I could ask you as questions, but I think I'm going to start with a comment, and maybe it's a question too. I have gone through many of these programs like pranayama and meditation and this and that, and where I've encountered many gurus, and they're not all in saffron robes, but they're all, have some wisdom to impart. But when I back off from this is when they ask for diksha, and they say, okay, anybody who wants to take diksha, and then that is kind of always encouraged that you want to do diksha. And I still, the moment they say that word, I sort of back up and say, no, I'm still open to more and more gurus. And I don't want to commit myself to some particular path that this Guruji, even though they're valid Gurujis, I understand that. But do you think that's a good attitude? I mean, and when should I understand when you said other times that the teacher will find you or the guru will find you, but you also have, you don't want to go astray on another path. So you have certain responsibilities too, and not just wait patiently for a guru to find you, but, keep yourself open. So what do you comment on that?
Well, I think in the olden time, it was fashionable to get people to get the diksha done. So you're right. That was basically to get an exclusivity clause signed by you, so that he is the ultimate guru. And remember, Kamran always used to bring that Swami asking you to the diksha, which I did not take, because that's what they're trying to push. Because when you have a guru, you automatically feel the urge to learn from that teacher. For example, when I got with Swami Dayananda, I was 87 and was with him till the day he moved to India, 2015. There was a natural attraction. I did not take any diksha from him. And anytime something important was there, he would communicate, he would answer, he has come here a couple of times. And through the telephone calls or some correspondence, I asked him, I'm not taking Diksha from you, but why you teach me? So he said that a good teacher does not need the Diksha. For example, you must have taken oath to learn from some teacher some time back, but you did not complete it last life when you came here and completed. So, Purva Janma Pramane, you have taken some support. So read the 6th chapter, I think 42nd, 43rd verse, you'll find out Purva Sayum. So that thing remains. And then the teacher does not, a teacher is able to judge who is on the right path. So he or she will take you under the wings. So you don't need to do that. I think if you feel connected, you automatically do that way. The teacher doesn't have to ask. He didn't ask me to go to his place, but I did go there at least once a year. Both of us, Kumar and myself, went to that particular place. And you see, this is 644. Purva Abhyasena Teneva Riyate Yavashopi Jidnyasura Yogasya Shabda Brahmada. Okay, so, and 43rd and 44th verse of the 6th chapter basically gives you that you have connections in the past and you come back to those teachers. You don't have that kind of relationship. But again, as I mentioned to you before, you cannot make holes in the ground at 10 different places and expecting you to find water. You see what I mean? You go for a certain depth, then you change the teachers, then you don't get any hole at all. So when you pursue a particular thing, continue the same way, because then the teacher also knows that he or she is really interested in understanding it. Then the teacher has interest in that individual too. So that's why it is important to do that. A formal Diksha is, to me, not important.
There is one thing I really kind of did not assimilate. And when you spoke about you cannot objectify by the mind cannot objectify. However, the anubhav, I mean, there was a piece of that anubhav. Then you said that can conquer the mind. In what way? I mean, I know there are two separate statements and you have to explain both individually, but I'm sorry, I did not get that.
Now, what I would do is, when you get the notes, read them carefully.
Okay.
Because this is such a deep subject matter, even describing on the way we're describing it is difficult to understand. That's why even if we talked about, I think it's in the last week's notes too. In the beginning, we talked about Upadesha Vakya, Tattvamasi. And then it goes through a definition of Lakshana Vakya. And then comes the Anubhava Vakya. That basically when the person changes in advancing his knowledge, he is able to experience the Brahman, that is Anubhava. And at that time, and that has gone through blessings from the teacher who is happy with the knowledge of Shastra, and he being a continuation of Sadashiva, he passes on the Deva Krupa too. So Guru Krupa, because his Guru Krupa is giving because he is happy with that individual knowledge, Shastra Krupa, passes on the Deva Krupa. And then that individual in her own way, is experience the Brahman within. That's Anubhava. See, what happens is the subject is Brahman or Atman, that you are saying. That is the one which allows you to experience or objectify anything. This is an object, but I can identify that as a glass, but that objectifier awareness is the subject that is able to do that. So when you are trying to find out what that subject is, who's going to subject that subject? Only then you can see his subject. So if you experience the subject through deep meditation or samadhi, what you've done, you're connected with it. So you get refreshed when you're in the fourth stage of deep sleep, because your iPhone is connected. You are not experiencing, you're not awake. You're not dreaming the subconscious mind. You are deep sleep. You're not aware of the present around. You're not aware of subconscious mind. The king feels the same way as the beggar feels, because you're connected with that awareness. That is the subject you're connected. That's the only one that gives you refreshment. So the next day, your phone is charged, your body is charged, you can function. See what I mean? So you have to experience it. You can read everything, but unless your modification, your behavior, thinking, actions allows you to reach that level of understanding where it's not a book knowledge, word knowledge, but experience, anubhava knowledge. So read that 3-4 times. And I'll send you these notes so I can make it less difficult. I didn't say easy, but again, it doesn't come overnight. It's a long. But again, most people are like butterflies in a way that move from one place to another. They don't have the persistent. You see what I mean? You need to stick on to subject matter. I'm not going to leave till I understand it. You see what I mean? And then you ask questions. Okay, so, but again, you can always go back 6, 43, 44 and refer to that, make you comfortable. Arun, any question from you?
I do not have question, but I see the same syndrome. I never take Diksha.
The thing is like this, as I told you, I did not take formal Diksha from anybody, at least in this life that I remember. But again, I had the persistent teachers though. Swami Bhashyananda from Vedanta Society from Chicago, who started it. Swami Chinmayananda and Swami Dayananda. Most being Dayananda finally.